Am I the asshole for refusing to punish my son for calling his classmates' food weird? I, female 32, got a private text this morning from the mother of my son's, male 7, classmate. She told me that apparently my son has been calling her daughter's traditional lunch weird and things as such, and apparently that is making her daughter feel uncomfortable and insecure. She asked me to please talk to my son about being more sensitive and respectful so her daughter doesn't feel excluded. Now, I feel for this woman as a fellow mother. No one wants to see their child feeling sad, but overcoming insecurities is a big part of growing up. Additionally, I thought it was ridiculous of her to criticize my son, a 7-year-old, for making relatively innocuous and curious comments about food that is not familiar to him. He is at a curious age and is discovering the world, and I refuse to try and limit him and shut him down for not having the emotional sensitivity of an adult. Politely, I told that mother that I was sorry for her daughter struggling with insecurities, and I found some online parenting articles about building your child's confidence to send to her so she could use some tips to help her daughter out. She replied and said I was acting completely shamelessly and disgracefully, and I am not able to text her anymore. Am I the asshole?
Was it like cultural food?
Her daughter's traditional lunch.
Oh, okay.
I think this is cultural food.
I mean, that would make sense. He's not gonna make fun of PB&J, yeah.
Yeah.
Or pizza.
No, because this little white boy's probably seen that.
He's eating that, yeah. Yeah, you are the asshole. I mean, saying no is one thing. Like, no, that's your own problem. That's an issue in and of itself. But to send the articles, dude, it's like over the top.
Am I wrong for leaving a trip early because of my girlfriend's prank? I, 20 male, had a girlfriend, 20 female of 8 months who I recently went on what was supposed to be a week-long beach trip in Queensland with her friends and family. She had been planning this trip for a long time and was looking forward to it, especially since I'd get to know them all. On the third day, we planned to go river floating. When we got there, I was looking through my bag before I went to change and I couldn't find my trunks. I instead found a new navy blue pair. When I told her this, she replied with, "Oh yeah, that's the extra one I packed in case you lost yours." I thought this was thoughtful. I changed into them and we all headed down towards the river. We all got into our tubes and started floating off. About 3 minutes in, I feel my suit getting baggier and I even noticed a piece is falling off. I was disappointed that they were a cheap pair, but I kept going. Once we hit the rapids, it got real though. I felt a sudden rush of cold water and I noticed that my trunks had been torn clear off by the water. I stood up covering myself with just the last piece. Everyone else, about 15 of her friends and family, started to laugh. I was absolutely horrified. One of my biggest fears is being naked in public, and now I was completely nude with no way to get back. I can't tell you how trapped and humiliated I felt. I had to spend the rest of the day with the water up to my shoulders, feeling awkward and embarrassed the whole time. Whenever we were in shallow water, I was forced to stand up and walk exposed in front of them. They weren't prudish either. Her friends and parents made jokes and comments on my body as we went. Her young cousins made sure to comment on the shape and size of my junk when I couldn't cover myself also. When we got to the beach, I had to run covering myself back to my towel. My day was completely ruined. I felt humiliated and angry. When we got back to our room, I was back into clothes trying to forget the day when my girlfriend comes in giggling to herself. She asked me if I liked the new swim trunks, and when I asked what she meant, she told me that she had ordered a prank dissolving pair in lounge and replaced the other one with it. I was absolutely livid. She had purposely exposed and violated me because she thought it would be a good laugh. She even made sure not to pack another pair or towel. I started yelling and she told me to calm down, saying that it was only a joke. I left that night and I didn't call her the next day. She called screaming at me, acting like I was the one who wronged her, saying that she had worked so hard for this trip and I was being immature. But I didn't want to be around someone who would humiliate me, especially considering that her family and friends would be there. I can understand that I ruined the trip for her, but it feels like her own fault.
Am I the asshole for blowing up at my uncle for coming out as trans? My uncle, 64, has been married for 42 years and has 4 kids. Her and her wife have been separated for a few months but are still trying to sort out their differences. Every year around March, the whole family holds a spring banquet. Due to their separation, they arrive separately. My uncle's wife arrived with the kids, and not long after, my uncle showed up. She was wearing a full face of makeup and a dress. At first, everyone thought it was some kind of joke and laughed, but soon realized it wasn't. When we sat down for dinner, she fully came out and said she identified as a woman now. My uncle's wife almost immediately burst into tears and left the room. Her eldest went after her while the rest of us stared at my uncle in shock. Am I the asshole for blowing up at my uncle for coming out as trans? My uncle has expressed not feeling like a man to some of the family, including me. It's why we pushed for her to get a divorce. When they separated, we thought my uncle had finally told her, but come to find out she didn't. Back to the dinner table. My uncle's wife and son had run out and the youngest was in hysterics. So I told her she was a selfish POS and I don't think I could say the next part. She left immediately, but a few days ago, my mother called me and said I took it too far and that my uncle wasn't responding to anyone's calls or texts. I know I was harsh, but it wasn't the right time or place to reveal that, especially when she hadn't told her wife and kids. Am I the asshole for leaving my fiance's birthday after my stepdaughter's prank? So I recently got engaged to my fiance Michael, and we don't live together but agreed to move together soon. He has a 16-year-old daughter, and I'm not gonna lie, she's quite stubborn. Her own dad struggles to get her to listen, and we're not close, which is something I know I need to work on. However, her pranks make it hard to have a good relationship with her. There is some humor to them, but sometimes she goes way too far. And my final straw was on her dad's birthday. When me and his family were having a great time until dinner. When I walked into the dining room, I saw my underwear on a hanger. Am I the asshole for leaving my fiance's birthday after my stepdaughter's prank? My stepdaughter looked at me, smiled, and said, "Oh, you forgot these last time you visited, and I didn't want you to forget them again." I was absolutely astonished, speechless even. Michael was shocked, and my in-laws and other guests, including Michael's friends, were staring at me in awkward silence. I felt humiliated. Some of them even laughed. Next thing I know, I yelled at her and was grabbing my stuff about to leave, and Michael and his daughter told me to calm down. It was just a prank. I left immediately and turned my phone off, and Michael left many text and voice messages calling me hypersensitive. He's also saying that I ruined the birthday for him and his family. Am I the asshole for being reluctant to cover my girlfriend's half of the rent? I, 34 male, have been with my girlfriend, 30 female, for 4 years, and we've been living together for over 3. We're very close, and she's a fantastic partner, and I adore her. She's done a lot for me financially because she helped support me through a career transition, and then my new career was impacted by COVID. Last year, she covered my half of the rent for about 6 months, but the thing is that I only ever asked once or twice, and she made it sound like it was a gift. She even explicitly told me she would cover my rent for 3 months so I could have breathing room to pay down my credit cards. Though I'm out of credit card debt, I don't have nearly as much savings as her. Am I the asshole for being reluctant to cover my girlfriend's half of rent? I know she has $10,000 in her bank account at all times because she told me this and has showed me before. I only have $2,500 in my bank account at this moment. Well, my girlfriend's job just went haywire with problems and is laying off the whole staff. They're giving them $250 a week for 6 weeks as severance, and it's really a nightmare, and she's freaking out. So she asked me if I could maybe cover her half of rent come May 1st. That way she could spend this month trying to find a new job because she doesn't want to touch her savings. I said sure, but she could tell I was uncomfortable, and when she asked why, I said I didn't even have savings.
Story time about why I made my boyfriend stop being friends with his girl best friend. So a little background information. I was in my sophomore year of high school, and my boyfriend and I had been dating for about 6 months. And he had been best friends with this girl, we're going to call her Addie, for about 3 years. Now, I had known Addie way before that, probably since we were in kindergarten. But her and I weren't like BFFs, we were more of acquaintances. But obviously, we became friends because she was always around my boyfriend. A month after him and I started dating, I decided that we had to set boundaries for their friendship. Because they had first period together, right? Well, every morning at 9:45, I would go on Snapchat and I would see a picture of them. And it would be her kissing him on the cheek. Not only would it be on her story, but it would also be on his. And I had her on Snapchat before that. She had never done that, ever. So he said that he had talked to Addie about it, right? And things were good for the next 2 months. Then they were forced to work together on a project. Like for part 2. Part 2 about why I made my boyfriend stop being friends with his girl best friend. So like I said, they had been forced to work together on a school project. At least that's what he told me. So I brushed it off because I was not about to seem like the jealous girlfriend. Well, the next day, him and I were supposed to go out to the movies. So I texted him right before we were about to leave, and I said, "Hey, are you on your way to get me?" He goes, "OMG, no, I'm sorry, I forgot. I have to work with Addie on this project. She's about to come over my house." So at this point, I'm like really pissed off. So I text him and I say, "I thought you guys had a whole week to work on this project. Why does it have to be tonight?" Addie knew that him and I were supposed to go to the movies that night also. He said, "We just want to get it done really quickly so that way I can spend the rest of the week with you." And she's snapping me the whole time that she's at his house, off of his phone. So at around 1:30 a.m., I get a Snapchat from her on his account, and she's laying on his chest. Part 3 about why I made my boyfriend stop being friends with his girl best friend. So like I said, she snaps me at 1:30 in the morning, a picture of her laying on his chest, and it's captioned, "Hey girlie, I hope you don't mind, but I have to spend the night at his house. He lost track of time working on our project, and it's way too late for him to take me home." So at this point, I'm furious, and I don't snap her back. So the next morning, I call my boyfriend. And I asked him, "Hey, is Addie still there?" So he says yeah, and then I ask him to put me on speakerphone. So when he does, I say hi to Addie. She goes, OMG, hey girl, how are you? And that's when I pretty much go off on this bitch. I tell him that while he was asleep, she was sending me pictures of her laying on top of him off of his Snapchat, and that she was sending those type of pictures to multiple people on his Snapchat because my best friend had texted me that morning saying that she thought that we broke up because Addie was sending her pictures of her laying on top of him. So I tell him, pick me or her. And she starts crying. After a minute of silence, he hangs up the phone and then blocks me. Good luck to the next girl.